Okay, today let's create subroutines. So where can we create subroutines? So where we use these subroutines. Subroutines can be created within the
Inside
programs. Okay, within the programs. What is the transaction code to create a program?
SC30.
SC38. Right? Let's take any existing program to create a subroutine. Or let me create a new program for subroutine. You can create subroutines in executable programs as well as include programs. Okay, in both type of programs, you can create subroutines. So when exactly we create a subroutine, when we need to repeat or when we need to reuse any functionality, right? When we need to call any specific functionality multiple times without writing the code, duplicate code, without writing the duplicate code, if we need to call the same functionality multiple times within the same program, at that time, which one we use? Locally, we use subroutines. So we can pass parameters to the subroutine like input and output. It can accept the input and return the output. Okay. For example, let me define selection screen. Please make a note that new ABAP syntaxes like data statement we cannot apply in subroutines. Okay. So I've defined two parameters defining one variable for output. Now so I want to write my business logic in subroutine so that I can call it multiple times. So how to define a subroutine? What is the syntax to define a subroutine?
perform perform and
Perform is to
subroutine.
call, right?
Form and end
Form
form.
and end form.
We can define a subroutine in two ways. First way is manually create form, perform name, end form. In here we write the code. This is subroutine definition. Is it going to execute? It's not displaying any syntax error, right? So it's not executing because we have defined the subroutine, but we are not calling it. So how to call a subroutine?
by using
Perform
perform.
and subroutine name. Okay. Now execute. Can it will execute that subroutine. Okay. For example, after the subroutine definition, I'm trying to do something. Again, I'm writing some logic. Is it going to work?
No.
What it is saying, statement is not accessible. So whatever the statements you write after subroutine definitions, they are not going to work. Okay. So always keep subroutine definitions at the end. Is it clear?
So we can define only one subroutine per program.
No, you can define multiple based on your requirement.
Okay.
And you can call this subroutine multiple times. I'm just calling it, but this is not how we use in the projects, but I'm just showing you how to call the subroutine multiple times. What is the expected output? So the subroutine is calling multiple times. Okay, is it unclear? Now let's see how to create a subroutine in a different way. First we add perform. We are able to access this variable and parameters within the subroutines because they are global. They are defined globally on top, right? So that the memory of parameters and variables can be accessible in any of the subroutines because they defined globally. If they defined locally within the subroutine, we can access those variables or subroutines only within the same subroutine. The variables which defined in one subroutine, we cannot access them in another subroutine. Okay, please remember that because they are local to that subroutine. Local variables, we call them as local variables. It applies to all data objects like constants, variables, work areas, internal tables. If you define them locally, for example, if you define any variable here, data lv underscore value type I. I can use this variable only within this subroutine. This is local to this subroutine. I cannot use this out of this subroutine. If you try to use it here, what it's going to say? LV value is unknown. But we have defined it, right? We defined within the subroutine definition. So it is local to the same subroutine. Okay, you can use it here. For example, I'm commenting here. Okay, these are called, what do we call this? What type of variables?
Local variable.
Local variables. These, whatever the variables we defined on top, what do we call this?
Local.
Global.
Global. So the memory of these variables are accessible in all subroutines. Even this applies to include programs. If you define any variables within the include program, they are accessible to the only that include program. Okay, they are also called local variables to that include program. Here we are not passing any inputs, right? In the first subroutine, we are not passing any inputs because we are using local variables, sorry, global variables. We are able to access those values here. Okay, let's assume we need to use local variables. That means we don't have any variable for output, or let's try to do this. Add parameters. How to add parameters to the subroutine?
Using.
By
Using.
using
What are the inputs? P underscore data 1 space P underscore data 2. What is the output? To which variable we need to capture the output?
changing
Changing LV output. Here, when you are calling the subroutine, you have a flexibility in changing the values every time. In the next call, you can pass a new value, right? First, let's create the subroutine. We are just calling it, but we are not defining it. How to create it? Double click on it. Yes. So it is asking two options. Do you want to create a new include program so that I'm going to maintain all the subroutine definitions in that include program? Or do you want to keep subroutine definitions in the main program itself? If you select this, it will automatically create one include program and keep all our subroutine definitions in that include program. So that include program will be placed at the end. Okay. For now, I'm selecting main program itself, master program. So this is how it generates the subroutine definition. What is this for? This commented part for documentation. You can add some text.
Sir, if we choose include program, then it can be reused, right, in any other application.
No, we can reuse only within the same program. Okay. We
If it
cannot
is
reuse out of the program. Okay.
if we choose include, then also it is specific to
Ah,
the program.
you're right. If you
Okay.
keep if you keep the subroutine definitions within the include program, then we have a flexibility to reuse it. I'll show you. Once we keep the include program, we can reuse those include programs so that whatever the subroutines available in the include program, we can automatically reuse. Okay. One second. So how to do logic here? Now, what are the input parameters available for us? These are the input parameters available. So we need to make use of these parameters to do any logic. Okay. You can change these names actually. Okay. You can also update these names to a different name. Okay. And instead of this, we can write statement here, lv underscore output. Now we are not passing the parameters directly, but it is generating input parameters within the subroutine definition and one parameter for the output. So we are passing values to those generated parameters and it will return that output here. Okay. Let me keep a breakpoint. Now tell me the controller is at subroutine definition, sorry, subroutine call. Now tell me the debugging options. What happens if you press F5? What happens if you press F6?
F5 means step by step.
Step by step. It will, if I press F5, I'm pressing F5. F5. It is going inside the subroutine. Observe here. Yes, right? It is going inside the subroutine and executing it step by step. Now again the controller is at next subroutine. What happens if I press F6?
Function by function.
It's not going inside the subroutine. It completed the execution in a single step, right? When we press F6. Okay. So it will complete execution in a single step. It will still execute this code, but not line by line. It will complete the execution in a single step. Okay. Now let me show you one more thing. If I want to go back to the previous statement, go to statement, again pressing F5 so that it will go inside the subroutine. But I'm not really interested to debug this. I don't want to debug further. I wanted to go back to main calling program. How to do that?
F7.
F7. If you press F7, it will complete the execution in a single step and go back to the main program. F7. I'm pressing F7. Now it completed the execution and return back to the next statement. Okay. So F7 will return from the function or subroutine to the main program. Okay. Again, I'm pressing F5. It will go inside the subroutine. What happens if you press F8?
Display the output.
Program execution.
It will complete the program execution. Okay, F8 will complete the program execution. F7 will return to the calling program. Okay, is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Now to call this subroutine again with different set of inputs, perform. For example, here I'm going to pass the variable. Okay, I'm going to pass this LV output with different input parameters and I'm calling the subroutine. Again, I'll print the output. Execute. Pressing F6. Now the output is updated to 30. Now I am passing that value to next subroutine. Then the output should be overwritten with the new value 50. Okay, clear? Is everyone clear? Now we have a concept called pass by value and pass by reference. Pass by value and pass by reference. When you are defining these parameters, when you are defining these parameters, what is that concept? It's about creating the memory. It's about creating the memory for the parameters. Pass by value, pass by reference. It is very important interview question. Okay. So we can pass these parameters by value or by reference. So if you just pass by reference, right? Here it's not going to create any memory. It is creating one parameter, right? When we create the subroutine, it is creating parameters, right? Within the subroutine definitions. Yes or no?
Yes.
But these parameters does not contain any separate memory. It will use the memory location of which one? Whatever the
Cache
parameters you are passing here. The same memory location it's going to use. Okay? That's called pass by which one? Reference or value? Pass by reference. You are just referring the memory location of the actual parameters. Okay? You are just referring the memory location of the actual parameters. These are the actual parameters. What do we call this? Formal parameters. We call these as formal parameters. These parameters are actual parameters.
actual
So these formal parameters refers to the same memory of the
actual
actual
parameter.
parameters. It's not going to create a separate memory for this. That is why if you update the value of this, it's going to reflect in this output. It's going to reflect in this output variable. Okay. So what do we call this? Pass by
Reference.
reference. Okay. Okay. Formal parameters in the sense the parameters which we define it within the subroutine definition. Okay. It uses it uses the memory reference of the actual parameters. Okay. Is everyone clear about the reference? Currently we are using pass by value or pass by reference.
Reference.
Pass by reference. If you update
Mhm.
these values are going to be automatically updated. Okay. Is everyone clear? Now what is this parameter value? Once we executed this data one parameter value, it will be updated to 2 because we are updating the reference. We are using reference here. It is also showing one error, not error but warning. What it is saying? Do not modify a using reference parameter. Instead, define the parameter using value or changing. So if you update here, this is going to reflect in the actual parameter because we are using reference. Okay, is everyone clear on this? Let's try to execute and check. F6. Now here in this subroutine, we are updating the value, right? Currently, the parameter value is 10. Output is 30. F6. What happened? The parameter value is updated to 2, right? Because we are updating the reference formal parameter. Okay. Now, how to make it pass by value? So value, when you pass parameter as pass by value, it will create a local memory. It will create a local memory for the variable. It will create a local memory for the variable. Let me create one separate subroutine for pass by value example. How to define a value using
Value.
value. Sorry, not here. You don't need to pass here. Double click. Yes. Here using value within the brackets. Okay. We are saying it's going to create memory locally. But how much memory?
Based on
And
data.
what is the type? So when we are using value by reference, you need to define type. Okay.
Data.
That is required. In the value by reference, pass by reference, we are not defining the type. Since we can also define it, but it won't make any difference because it is using memory location of the actual parameters. But here it is creating memory location for the separate memory location for the formal parameters. Okay, is everyone clear? Now I am updating. Now I am updating this parameter for the formal parameter. Is it going to reflect in the actual parameter here? Here
No.
it is reflecting. It is updated. Let's check. Now we are using pass by value. Okay. Execute. F8, F6. So here we are updating the parameter by using reference. The parameter value is updated, right? Now subtract. Now here we are using pass by reference. Sorry, pass by value. Oh, I should have passed a different value here. Let me. What I'll do, I'll update the output value to this. Okay, I'll keep a breakpoint at pass by value. F5. So check the memory. Now we are updating. Where are we? I think I've activated it, right? Why it is not reflected? Okay. So what is the data one value currently? What is this parameter value? P underscore data one. Currently it is 30, right?
Yes.
So F5. We updated this value, right? Formal parameter value. F5. Is it reflected in the actual parameter?
No, sir.
No, it's not because this formal parameter created its own
No.
memory. Okay, whatever the changes you do, they are local to the subroutine. Okay, until unless you return as a output using changing parameter. Okay, that's called pass by value. So it creates local memory location when we use a pass by value. Okay, is everyone clear? Okay, this is called pass by value. How to define pass by value? Form using p underscore input, sorry, using value type the data type. Okay, these are we define formal parameters for the pass by value. Is everyone clear? Sorry. Now let's see how to reuse. Some of you, like someone of you mentioned that we can use include programs, right, to reuse the subroutines. That is true. The actual property of the subroutine we can call only within the same program, right? But if you can keep these subroutine definitions within a include program, let me create an include program. I'll keep all the subroutine definitions in a include program. Activate the include program because they are already available here. I'm going to remove these subroutine definitions. Include program is at the end. Okay. Now check the syntax. It's working. Now whatever the complex logic within the subroutine definitions, we can include in a different program or not.
Yes.
Yes, we can include. Simply create another program, example 2. If your functionality is similar, I'll copy only these variables, or you can also modularize this using a different include program. Add this include program here, and you can call your subroutines or not. Perform add numbers.
It should be dot include.
Sorry?
Dot include, right?
No, no.
For
Dot include we use in structures
Tables.
and tables, right? To add the structures.
okay.
Okay, right? It's going to execute. Okay, or you can keep everything into a include program, including subroutine calls, and you can reuse the complete logic. Okay, in a different program. Is everyone clear on this? Is everyone clear on include programs? Sorry, subroutines.
Sir, so pass by value should be defined locally, sir.
Hmm. It creates local memory for the subroutine
Okay.
formal parameters. Local memory within the subroutine definition. But here it's going to refer the actual parameter memory location. It won't create separate memory location. If you want to manage something locally and you don't want to update the actual parameters, right? At that time, we use pass by value.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Any questions on this? Sorry. Any questions? Okay. So that of starting function modules today, but it's very important and big topic. So anyway, it's not enough for to continue or to complete some basics. So we'll continue tomorrow on function modules topic. Okay.